welcome to Trudy and Friends. I'm Trudy. My friends include Kathy Lee, the original, Jerome Roberts, the Philly Gator, and Gary Williams, the man about town. And we're going to be talking today about some very serious things. I know we have the Afghanistan situation, the pandemic, and lots of things are going on. But one thing that we're very concerned about is the epidemic of violence in our streets, and particularly here in Philadelphia. We want to get to that. So, Gary, I'm going to ask you to kind of give us an overview of what's going on.
Well, hello, fans and the people that are listening in the audience. Um, it's a very bad situation going on, and no one appears to know what the solutions are. So I'm going to just give you some facts and numbers. The number of homicides is 345 as of Sunday, 11:59 p.m. The number of non-fatal shootings is 1,201. 85% of the fatal and non-fatal shootings are African Americans. 52% of the fatal and non-fatal shooting victims are males between the ages of 18 to 30. 27% of the fatal and non-fatal shooting victims are males between the ages of 31 and 45. 141 fatal and non-fatal shooting victims are under the age of 17.
So we're killing our
Most of
youth a lot of
the
ways, huh?
most of the gun violence happens to be centered in North and West Philadelphia.
Mm.
That's the current stats up to Sunday evening. Now, as of Sunday evening, which today's Tuesday, other things have happened. So that's the gist of the matter. So it is an epidemic.
Do we
We
know
need to find.
why it's happening so much to, do we know why, Gary, that it's happening so
Um,
much worse than before and so much happening to our young men particularly?
well, there's one main contributor to the fact is that the young people have short fuses, and they actually have nothing to do. They have no jobs, so poverty would be the main highlight of why it's happening.
Mhm.
For me, that's what I would say.
Mhm.
Also, they don't have the mentors that we as older adults grew up with, and the spiritual. I would go there with the spiritual foundation which we had when we were growing up in the churches. I don't
Mhm.
think any of these young people have seen the door of the church.
Mhm.
That's my analogy.
That's what you're
It's
saying,
a
huh?
yeah, yeah. I believe the most important one is that they have thin skin. So if someone says something to one another and they don't like what is being said, then they might just go get a gun and just shoot the person that made the statement about them because they don't want to feel like embarrassed or dissed. And that's happening on Instagram and Facebook.
Jerome, you've been around quite a bit and you go around quite a bit, so you hear these kids talking. What do you see as the underground reason that there's been so much of an increase? Because sometimes they shoot people that they don't even know, they've never seen in a park or just in an automobile, and they just take out a gun and pop, pop. What's going on?
This epidemic of violence and gun violence is happening all across the United States. There's an increase of over 22% of murders in all major cities. And one of the impetus is these young people have nothing to do but pay attention to social media. And if they feel as though getting disrespected on social media, they're resorting to violence. And part of it is the pandemic having people locked down with nothing to do. And you find something to do, and oftentimes what you find is trouble. Thin skin, Gary mentioned thin skin, and you're absolutely right, Gary. Many of these young people have, they resort to gun violence at the top of And oftentimes when they start, a bullet doesn't a bullet know anybody. A bullet just goes where it's aimed. And so many of these people are getting shot are bystanders.
That's
And
what
it's
I
tracking on
mean.
it.
They don't even know.
And
Well,
that's what
Kathy,
the community, the number of young that have been affected by this. When I say young people, I'm talking about the people 17.
well, Kathy, as a former teacher, and I know you're still doing things with young people, can you see something that we as the public can do to kind of calm things down or help the authorities that are trying to do something?
Okay, let me preface my remarks to this topic by saying that this is a continuing issue. It is not a new issue. And when you look at how we arrived at this, the whole criminalizing of a race of people that began in this country, you really have to sit back and peel the layers off of the onions. Because when I think of this topic, I think of Du Bois when he did his seminal work, the Philadelphia Negro. I also think of, I think the guy's name is Lane, who actually documented a lot of stats on the rise of violence in Philadelphia about maybe 2 or 3 years after Du Bois's seminal work, which came out in 1899. But the issues are what Gary and Jerome said. It's poverty, it is being disadvantaged. It's also the lack of a quality education. And we're still leaving the education of our children in the hands and of a system that is not designed by us or for us. And so we're constantly struggling as educators to even bring students into the fold. And on a personal note, one of the articles that I looked at, I was stunned to see a student that I taught, Sakar Johnson. His son was a victim, I believe, of the July 4th shooting. And
Mm,
what saddens me even more on a very personal note is I remember when his brother, Darnell, was killed by gun violence in the same neighborhood. It took 6 bullets and took a week, from my understanding, of each bullet for him to finally transition. So there are
mm,
families that are going through the same um, uh, um, pandemic or situation. And as an educator, I think it's extremely important for our children to understand that when you are socialized into having these this fractured worldview and of what society is and even who you are. If you don't even know who you are, I mean, Ibn Battuta wrote about the kingdoms of West Africa that he traveled through prior to our arrival in the United States. He said that Africans, the cities he traveled through West Africa were clean. They wouldn't even rob a dead man. They packaged
mm.
up all their belongings. So we have become like the people that that captured us and brought us here. I'm just saying, is there a link between that? But anytime Du Bois said, anytime you have a prison system where you get paid to keep it going, it's going to
Mm.
keep going. Convict leasing or the peonage system with the land. You're constantly in the grips. It's like a vice that's tightening. And with the pandemic of COVID and the violent pandemic, we're still not talking about where are they getting the guns from. They want you to have the guns. So why don't you investigate where the guns are coming from? Who's supplying these guns to our young men to go out there? But if you don't know
Mm.
who you are, if you can't look in the mirror, as Dr. John Henry Clark said, and like what you see, it's easier to point a gun and shoot someone that looks like you. I'm just
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But isn't there something that we, as the people in the streets getting shot, can we do something? Something that we're not doing. Are there enough agencies? I read an article in the paper where some young men just started a new agency and they're asking for volunteers. That maybe there are more things that we could volunteer in ways to help to curb this situation.
Well, I could say something to that. The city of Philadelphia has opened up an application process for anti-violence and community expansion grants. So the grant is out there right now. I don't know. Um, this was in an issue of Scoop newspaper. I can give people reference. Tuesday, August 17th, Scoop newspaper has an article about the city of Philadelphia opening up the application process for anti-violence community expansion grants. So grant means that you can get the money, and I'm assuming that you don't have to pay the money back. So with that said, there's a deadline. I think it's September 2021
Hmm.
coming up that the grants are allowed to give. Um, I can give further information because this is an ongoing subject. So um, maybe within our next show, we can have the listeners get the information.
Good idea. Good
Yeah.
idea.
So, yeah. So
Yeah.
the thing that it says, the anti-violence community expansion grant program will directly fund and support organizations focused on reducing violence through trauma informed healing, restorative practice, safe havens, and mentorship. That's what it
Hmm.
says. So that those are the areas that really need to be focused on, as Kathy and so Jerome and I mentioned.
Now, what you're saying sounds real good in this room where you are, but to me, again, take that money. If you can find Osama bin Laden, why can't you find out where these guns are coming from? Why can't you find out who is creating and supporting the the violence in the community? We're looking at the young people that have the guns, but it's the same thing even with the drugs and stuff. I mean, we don't grow the cocaine, we don't do any of that. But how does it get here? So who are the people supplying that? So focus some of the
Well,
money on finding out where the stuff is coming from, and also focus on getting the resources into the community. But it's going to start with education because
well,
education is the key. However, you got a whole lot of educated people that are criminals now. Let's just keep it real. It has
well,
nothing to do with color.
you got to remember that the FDA, I mean the firearms. What's the name of that organ? Oh, you got to remember just one thing. You got to remember that the NRA is probably one of the most powerful organizations in this country. So when you look at that and what happened in the Capitol and what happened with guns being able to be allowed to carry openly, then you know that the guns is not one of their agendas to prevent, because it means the
Hmm.
right to bear arms. So the whole Constitution has to be
Here's a bared
rectified.
arm. Here's a bare arm.
One of the issues is in our community, especially in hip hop culture, there's a celebration of violence, and it's the celebration of violence. You can't look at a show about hip hop and not talk about the violence that is there. The music is constantly disrespecting women and celebrating violence. And that culture of celebrating violence is endemic in our young people. Growing up on this socialization through hip hop that says it's okay. I mean, people like 50 Cent is talking about, a shot 5 times, they're celebrating about it. So the celebration of violence in our culture is something that we have to address.
Let me go
Okay,
back to
but
some of the
Jerome,
other.
Jerome, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Trudy, I don't mean to cut
Uh-huh.
you off. I'm sorry. I
That's all
have
right.
to say this again. Here we are. Look, I understand we're talking about the gun violence in Philadelphia and the streets affecting our community, but you can turn on MeTV. You've got Gunsmoke, you got the Riflemen, you have the Wagon Train, you have all of the whole culture of America is gun oriented, gun violence. I mean, somebody
Yeah,
gets
that's true.
shot on the Ponderosa and Gunsmoke every single second, Jerome, and guess what? They go boom. Oh, gee, that's a shame the guy got shot, but he shouldn't have done that. And I mean, it's done with such casualness. So if it's no matter where you go in America, so we need to stop blaming our hip hop people because basically they bring out what the challenges are. If you listen to what they're saying, then maybe we can relate to where they are, and that's what teachers do. That's what good teachers do. You find out
Mm.
where they are located, and then you work from the inside out. But you have to be able to be comfortable in the skin you're in and know and have the knowledge and gain the respect of the children that you are teaching and get the parents involved. But it's education and point the fingers elsewhere too. It's not just us. We're being
It's not
impacted by
just
the
Kathy.
systems.
It's
Well,
not just
what do
us,
you
Kathy
guys?
Lee. There's a celebration of violence in America. So America's
Okay.
a violent country, and there's a celebration of all our media, not just in hip hop. So absolutely right.
Right, the 4th of
Well,
July. The Star Spangled Banner. I'm sorry, Trudy, I didn't mean to
yeah.
cut you off. So my student lost his son on the 4th of July. The rocket's red glare. So let's get real about it. Come on now. Holla back at all this crap. I'm sick and
Well,
tired of talking about it.
what do you guys think about if we are subject to a curfew? No one's talked about that, and it could happen.
I'm not going back to
How
Well,
do
no
you
well,
daggone
feel?
slavery times.
well. If they have a curfew, what is going to happen? The violence is going to happen inside the houses now. Are they going to contain it to the people that they love, the loved ones that are inside their homes, just like in the corona, that they had a lot of violence going on with husbands and wives fighting each other and hurting each other and some killing each other? That's what happened during
Yeah,
the corona.
Kurt.
And that wasn't even involving weapons. I mean, well, it might have involved weapons, but look what happened with that. So what is a curfew going to do?
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
Yeah.
know if
curfew
that's an
is going to be
answer,
the
but it
answer.
could be.
Mhm. And
Well,
you
I
know,
know.
there's a thing that my grandmother taught me, 101, God bless her. She said, if you hang around a barber shop long enough, you're bound to get a haircut. What has happened in this society and this history of America, we have been around them so long, we started to capitulate like them. So we're picking up their habits.
I
And
think
you
it
know
would
what
be
else?
fine. Go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was going to say, you know what else has changed? When we grew up, my grandmother lived upstairs, my aunts were across the street. In other words, I was surrounded by family and people that thought they were my family. We've lost that within the community. Because when I had
True.
students,
Yes.
grandma lived in North Philly, child lived in Southwest Philly. There's no one to watch them. There's no one overlooking them. The big kids on the block looked out for all of the little kids on the block. If a stranger walked on the block, them big kids were on it. They
Mhm.
and if there was a fight, they supervised it. You got hit,
Mhm.
you got hit, okay, it's over, it's done. That's not what's happening because no one has shown them the way that we used to handle this, just like we did in Africa prior to enslavement. We handled our own business within the compounds, within the culture, and you lived with their decisions. Because being ostracized from your family in Africa was like death.
You
Well,
It's
this is
know,
a
called the
good
village. It
this is
was
a
called
good
the
and Kelly,
spot,
village.
I want to
Jerome.
say one last thing is that
Yes.
Yeah,
the fabric community was, and if we can rebuild some social fabric in the black community, a lot of it and then the violence go down.
well, this is a good
There you
spot as
go.
I start to say that we can continue this because it's not going to stop just because we're talking about it. And so we will continue this. In the meantime, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back with another subject I think you will like. Well, we're certainly going to come back to our original subject about violence in our streets, but there are some things that are going on in our streets that you may want to comment about, like men in skirts. Hold it. Don't get excited now. Men have been wearing short pants for a while, and they've been coming up without with all kinds of different things for their wardrobe. So to see men in skirts, how do you feel about it? And I want your opinions and what you're saying about it, folks. So come on out. Where did it start?
Started about 2000, well, back in the BC era. before the Common Era with the people of Kemet that some people call Egyptians. But in classical organizations or societies, they always had skirts. In fact,
Yes.
really, Western men wore skirts. You've seen the Irish kilt, you've seen the lava lavas of the Samoans and other people, but it really doesn't change within Western society. It's more of a Western thing to be against seeing men in skirts. And it started around the Victorian era when they decided that wearing a skirt was unmanly. But however, let's flip it around, Trudy. How about women in pantsuits? When you were growing up, you couldn't wear pants to school, but it's the same
No
thing.
way.
I mean, they arrested a Puerto Rican woman back around 1906. I think her name was Luisa, whatever it is. And anyway, she was arrested for wearing a pantsuit. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, you fellas, what do you have to say?
Well,
Um,
the
Show them
contemporary
legs,
well,
Gary.
issue,
good,
the
Jerome.
contemporary issue of men in skirts is about feminization. And the perception is that if a man is in a skirt, he's very feminine. And men in skirts have been around for several thousand years. So I don't know what this
And some are
feminization
still
is of men
wearing
in
them. Aren't they
skirts. I
still
know
wearing them in
amongst
the
black men,
country?
it's a feminization.
Today, when a man is in a skirt, it appears that he's gay or he has some kind of tendencies to be gay. But
Yeah.
I noticed one thing that they haven't been making black male, big, strong black male basketball players and football players and actors and people of that, athletic uh, TV stars wearing skirts. But what that was symbolizing is demeaning them, to make them female. That's the symbolization to that currently. So in ancient Egypt and Kemet, it was a different meaning. So skirts today and skirts then have two different
Country is that?
meanings. So, you know, when we look at
And
it
in
today, because
England, they're still wearing skirts.
yeah, but it has two different meanings. That's the thing. It has
Uh-huh.
like a cultural thing, and then it has an occult
A
type
fetish.
of um, I don't even
Did you
know.
say
I
a
would just
cult?
say
A
I just
cult?
yeah, cult. Today,
Well, there are.
the occult part, the cult aspect of it is because of the fact that the people that have the men that are real men wear skirts today, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't have a meaning of goodness. It has a
Okay.
negative
It's
I did.
like I
Oh,
connotation.
said,
wow.
the
Okay.
feminization of the man,
Okay.
especially the black
Right,
man.
right. Like Jerome is saying, the feminization. So that's goes along with some other society. It's like a secret society type of thing that they
The
do.
Scottish still wear them?
It's like an initiation, more or less today than it
Oh,
is back.
I'm.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh
This is
yeah.
blowing me out because I'm gonna tell
It's
you
very
something. There's Gary, face a Maasai warrior. They still wear skirts.
yeah, but they're
Those some of
not
the
doing that type of.
this.
They're not the.
Oh,
It's
yes,
not
they
their
are. They wear
culture.
skirts.
It's
The
it's not.
no,
It's
excuse me.
not.
Zulu
But it
warriors
has.
wore skirts. Gladiators
Yeah,
wore skirts.
but you're
So
missing the
if you're
point. The
strong in your
point.
man, if you're strong in your manhood, show them
Yeah.
legs, baby. That's all I have to say. I don't know why
Yeah,
y'all are going into a
but I
cult. I've
point.
never heard
But
of a cult in skirts. That's like
Me and Jerome are pointing out to the fact that it has two different connotations as back then
Well,
as it
they're
is
right. And
now.
I suppose, like
and
anything else,
again, it's
it's who's wearing them and how they perform when they're wearing them.
They made what's the name, the basketball player wear a skirt, and they made Kevin
okay,
Hart want to wear. They made Kevin Hart want to wear a skirt because it's a form
okay.
of an initiation, and he's decided
It's
that he didn't want
also
to do it.
okay,
And
okay,
you
but
got to
it's
watch.
also
You got to watch how things are going with why they're trying to make these people wear skirts. And Jerome, you're right, because it's demeaning in one way,
it is
and it's
what
Well,
it.
and
I said it depends on who's wearing it, how they wear it, and how they perform it. Okay? There are a lot of
well
things that women
somebody's
even
ringing the
wearing
bell.
skirts, you don't want them. That's our bell. That's time for us to go, folks. So let's wrap it up with I'm just saying, okay? Anyone have some last
Okay.
remarks?
I have a last
Well,
remark.
I'm just saying,
All right, go
go ahead,
ahead,
Kathy.
Jerome, and then
Go
Kathy,
ahead,
you can
Jerome.
break it up.
Go ahead, Jerome.
Okay,
Go ahead, Jerome.
I'm just saying, Kirk my legs. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's all you
I'm
say.
just
Okay,
saying,
Kathy.
I'm just saying that your reproductive organs work better when they have room to breathe. So breathe and let them flow. Go with the flow.
I
Okay,
could say
please.
something. Well, men wear
Okay, hurry
pants
up.
because women's legs could take the cold in the winter. I don't think men can wear skirts in the winter.
Oh, come on,
Oh
they've
my,
been wearing
come
them
on,
long enough.
Gary. Come
I
Come
on,
just
on,
said it.
cut
boy.
it out.
I
Oh,
Okay,
wouldn't wear one
listen,
in the winter.
you're
it's
I
just
don't want
time
that
for
air.
us to
I don't.
cut.
Well,
chicken.
how do
It's time
the
for us to
ladies feel
cut.
when when that cold air is blowing up your dress?
I don't know. Why are
Kathy,
you looking?
we're getting into another discussion, folks. We're glad you joined us. Don't forget, we'll be here again. It's pretty